I think, Chair, the issues raised by Mrs. Justin Bajenda are not clear. She wants the proceedings of this committee from beginning to where we are.
Thank you, Chair. That one plus all the matters that were raised by the different stakeholders who the committee interacted with, and especially related to me as an individual.
Mrs. Bajenda, we had your staff, a staff from Bank of Uganda here, and we gave all the records that were discussed, and they were sent to Bank of Uganda.
No, Chair. Are you retired? I'm no longer staff of Bank of Uganda, and they were specific issues raised against me as an individual, as Bajenda, not as Bank of Uganda.
Mrs. Bajenda, do you want to create the impression that as we were sending these proceedings to Bank of Uganda, or as the officers of Bank of Uganda were participating, you and Bank of Uganda do not sit down to discuss your responses?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I didn't get a copy of the reports, memoranda from the stakeholders interacted with, but I was invited for a meeting yesterday, and I sent an apology because I was still sorting out the allegations on my property. There was a meeting yesterday which I'm aware of, but I sent an apology to the governor. I was still sorting out the alleged properties and bank accounts which were brought to the committee. And remember, Honorable Chair, you gave me permission. Thank you.
I did not give you permission not to attend the meeting with the Bank of Uganda, but I gave you permission to deliver the documents late. And it's also on that basis that we really think the rejoinder that the Bank of Uganda is making is putting everything together.
Chair, maybe what we need to know is what happened to the lawyer that Madam Bajenda introduced to this committee. The last time I had lawyers representing me to court, even when I was not physically there, they would be there and report to me. So she introduced a lawyer, and the lawyer, I think, is just not an escort to Madam Bajenda, that he is only here when the Bajenda is here. And this committee had admitted the lawyer. So what happened to the council that you had? Somebody is whispering to me that the lawyer is here.
But what we can also do, Mrs. Bajenda, listen to the responses that are going to be given by Bank of Uganda, and if you're not satisfied with the end of them, then you give us a written memorandum on what you think is correct. We have to finish this. So we'll give you, you'll tell us at the end of the session if you're not satisfied, and if you're going to give us a written memorandum, which we must receive by end of tomorrow.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. Around us is a number of Ugandans who claim their properties, personal properties, were attached by Bank of Uganda when they closed several of these banks in question. They are, by my observation, being chased by their own age seriously, and they have been moving to here for some time. Would it be procedurally okay that we hear from them and dispose them off?
Honorable Kasvante, we had a ruling here, and we agreed that would be handled by the committee that is coming after 22nd. All those issues would be handled by the incoming committee. Yes, Honorable Florence.
Coming soon on NTV. NTV presents another exciting must-watch drama series. In the beautiful capital of Uganda, a hotel chain, has been running for decades.
If you don't show composure and stability, the business will not survive. You understand that?
It's time for the man himself to hand over.
This company belongs to Bate.
God, life is so good after retirement.
Tell that to Barbara.
Did you do what I asked you to do?
Who will he choose?
That will be my son.
Are you kidding me? He's a boy.
Who will carry on the legacy?
Junior is old enough to talk about the business. This is ridiculous.
But the contenders are even more.
You think to become CEO?
Confusion of love. Family conflict.
Madam Barbara tuyisabubi wano naye ngena kweddiza omusajja wa kitegeeri.
I sleep in the guest room.
Mr. Bate has left his bedroom.
Relationships.
I know that Chief Ambassador is right here. Where is he?
When a guy cheats on you after 4 years of putting up with him, honey, you need to celebrate.
Come together in the power of legacy.
Doctor, don't you want my number?
Heartbreak.
You promised that we were going to get married.
Well, I don't want that with you anymore.
Threats.
If you mess with Rachel, you will have to deal with me.
Revenge.
Well, now I have you where I want you.
Who will put on the nasty fight in the quest for legacy?
I do not have to explain myself to you.
Power of Legacy, coming soon on NTV.
All these issues being raised are technicalities and time is going. So let's get started and see how it moves. Thank you.
And I want you members to appreciate this is one of the things that remained pending. And we sent the auditors to go and ascertain the accountability of the 478. And the objectives we gave to the auditors, one of the objectives was to establish whether the statutory manager prepared financial statements in line with the Section 94 of the Financial Institutions Act 204. 2, to ascertain the liquidity position of CBL during the statutory management. 3, to establish whether the liquidity support of 466 billion was appropriately requested for by the statutory manager and subsequently approved and disbursed by Bank of Uganda. 4, to establish the source of funding for liquidity support and intervention costs amounting to 478.8 billion. 5, to establish whether the liquidity support of 466 billion was used to settle the obligation of bona fide customers and that had sufficient account balances prior to the carrying out of the transactions. To establish whether the funds used to cater for intervention costs, that's 12 billion, during the statutory management period was properly accounted for. And then lastly, to establish the extent of recovery of 478 billion, which was injected to Crane Bank Limited by Bank of Uganda. Those were the specific objectives that were given to the auditors. We are going to look at Bank of Uganda will take us through on the audit findings and their responses.
Yesterday, somebody claiming to have represented the Greenland Bank put across very salient issues to do with the Greenland Bank. And one called Elias Lukwago, who claims to have represented the Greenland Bank.
Can we finish the accountability and then we go to those issues?
Okay.
And we are giving accountability only 1 hour. Governor, can we start with accountability?
Madam Chair, I thought the EDS would first lay on table the documents requested for, then we can commence.
He is only picking the microphone to address us.
Lay on table the documents, then we go to the audit report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through the Governor. There were a number of documents we were requested to bring, and first I would like to start with copies for all members. The Bank of Uganda has provided written responses together with the documentary evidence thereof to the submissions by the shareholders. First is to the matters of Global Trust Bank. Madam Chair, that is a box of copies of our responses to the Global Trust Bank for circulation to the members. The next one is for Greenland Bank. The next is for ICB and NBC. The next is for Cooperative Bank. The next set of files is for Crane Bank. The next item for submission is a brief on the Deposit Protection Fund, together with the associated annual financials. Again, Madam Chair, I'm giving you copies for enough for circulation for all the members. There was a query about the Bank of Uganda's response to on Cooperative Bank, Madam Chair, forgive me. On Cooperative Bank, we had been asked to present registration documents for Cooperative Bank to understand the difference between the 1964 versus the 1997 bank. Next is the response to the Honorable Minister of Trade, Honorable Chamberlain's letter on Cooperative Bank to the chairperson. Again, those are 20 copies for all members. Next, I'm also laying before responses to the petitions by former debtors of the closed banks. I'm also adding on there were two questions the committee asked on whether loans from a bank under liquidation can continue to accrue interest, and whether a bank whose license has been revoked can charge interest. We provided a response to that particular query, and copies are also going to be brought to you for circulation to members. Next, the committee had requested for financial statements for the period ending June 2016 for ICB, Cooperative Bank, and Greenland Bank. In addition, we've also, Madam Chair, the committee had requested for evidence that Nile River Acquisition Company, which purchased a portfolio of Greenland Bank, Cooperative Bank, and ICB, is still in business. In response, what we did as Bank of Uganda is we wrote to the Register of Companies, the Republic of Mauritius, for a response. A copy of that letter is also going to be made available to all members. There was the issue of who owns the portfolios of Greenland Bank and Cooperative Bank that are subject to court processes. Next,
clarification, Madam Chair. On the letter of to Nile River, is it a response from what you wrote or what you wrote?
Madam Chairperson, it's what Bank of Uganda wrote. When you asked us for the registration status, we then wrote to the Register of Companies, the Republic of Mauritius, where the company was incorporated, to give us the most current registration status of this company.
Yes, this is what I'm asking. Did you get a response and you are also submitting it?
We have not received a response yet. Madam Chair, there was the issue of the names of the Executive Director and CFO of Global Trust Bank, who for the record were actually one and the same person, that falsified the bank's financial statements and the evidence of that falsification. We are circulating as part of the Global Trust file the report of examination for 2012, where that evidence was adduced and where it was mentioned in the report by Bank of Uganda. We also requested to provide a list of all Crane Bank Limited depositors that were transferred or not transferred to DFCU. Madam Chair, all depositors of Crane Bank were transferred to DFCU. We had made an earlier submission of all the depositor listings, and that information is also available. And lastly, is what you had asked us to do, I'm also going to share with this committee Bank of Uganda's response, formal written response to the Auditor General's report on the special audit for the Crane Bank for 78 billion. Thank you.
Members, let's receive the files, and when we are looking at those specific institutions, you will have to take us through institution by institution and document by document. I hope you have a copy left. So can we start with the special audit?
When Honorable Paul came with documents here, and we decided to have a smaller committee to verify the authenticity and the relevance, I thought it was to help this committee get information as it handles accountability issues. I would now think that it would be prudent that we have to dispose of the report of that subcommittee on the document submitted by Honorable Boto, and we have that information as the committee as we handle the accountability issues, because it would be some good information for us to dispose of the issues to do with accountability. So the procedural issue is it procedural correct that we have to dispose of the report of the subcommittee before we handle these serious accountability issues?
Honorable Kasvanti, I thought the chair had already ruled that we start with accountability. And I made a commitment that we shall give that report before we close.
Thank you, Chair. I absolutely agree with your ruling and would abide by it. I only pray that as you know, these meetings at times they end at midnight. Since this is the exit meeting, we create good time to present those reports, because I have some information which I want to tender to the whole world. I've been attacked in the media that the documents are fake, and I want to avail more all the details, further and better particulars, because my reputation is at stake. So you create good time for it before it is late, and we dress the devil in their suits.
Honorable Cho, just have the assurance that we shall present the report. Some of the members of the report are not yet here to sign the report, but the report is ready, and we'll have it presented. Can we start with the special audit?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the Governor. There was a special audit on the report, the Uganda shillings 478 billion that was injected into Current Bank Limited by Bank of Uganda. The matters, the detailed findings start with page 1, where we did be 1.0 is just the introduction and the background to the audit. 1.2 is the objective of the audit. 1.3 is the specific audit, specific objectives. 1.4 is the scope and the nature. 1.5 is the methodology. 1.6 limitations. 1.7 restriction on distribution. 1.8 is legal advice. The key issues, the key findings start with 1.9. Specifically, I would like to draw on 1.91, with reference to the financial crisis management plan by Bank of Uganda of 2015, paragraph 2 states, and allow me to read, Madam Chair, that although the plan provides for the injection of liquidity support in times of crisis, it does not provide for the process of injection of liquidity support to financial institutions during the statutory management period. The Bank of Uganda response on that matter is, as was agreed with the Auditor General in the exit meeting, going forward, the Bank of Uganda is going to review this financial crisis management plan and include the documentation of detailed operating procedures for the said plan.
Honorable members, I hope you all have the audit report. And the EDS is looking at 1.91. That is on the requisition and approval, which is page 3 of the report. Are you there, members?
Yes, we are.
The issue is on requisition and approval, and the EDS is saying, upon receipt of the request, I am assuming the request is from a statutory manager, DCB, what is DCB, Director Commercial Banking?
Yes.
Would forward the request to EDS, who would approve from...
Who would seek approval from the governor or the deputy governor?
Who would receive approval from governor or deputy governor. The issue is who approves the monies that is being injected to the statutory manager.
Madam Chair, based on the old auditor's report, which was something indicated in the earlier report, in this particular case, the approvals were given by the Deputy Governor.
And we are looking at this under which legal regime is this money is approved. We are talking about 478 million. How is this money disbursed from Bank of Uganda to the statutory manager? Who has the right to approve? What does the law say?
Thank you,
Yes.
Chair. And further to that, 478 billion shillings was approved, if I may hear from the Deputy Governor, towards the process of liquidation of Crane Bank. So I want the instrument, if we could be told the instrument that the Deputy Governor used as to form, what instrument he used, and Madam Chair, the minutes of how they arrived at the figure of 478 billion shillings of taxpayers' money to liquidate a bank that was in deficit of 32 billion. So I need those two important information, how we can use 478 billion shillings to handle a bad debt of 32 billion.
And when you look at, members look at paragraph 2. Although the plan provides for injection of liquidity support in times of crisis, it does not provide a process of injection of liquidity support to financial institutions during statutory management period. From the review of documents provided and the interaction with the management, I documented the process of injection of funds into CBL by BoU and subsequent utilization of injections as follows. The request of liquidity support were initiated by statutory manager to the Director of Commercial Banking. Approval. The requests for liquidity support were in form of outgoing TT payments, onward RTGSs, letters of credit, and cash requirement.
Madam.
Yes, Honorable Michael.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, whereas the EDS was very fast to proceed to the audit queries, you realize that the preamble of the Auditor General is extremely imperative. In line with the 478 billion, I want to refer you to table number 3, which is on page 7, Roman 7, that has a breakdown of $85 million and 171 billion Uganda shillings, which translates to the 478 billion. Madam Chair, for us to appreciate the approvals of these amounts, the requisition and approvals, we must first appreciate the amounts and the source. Madam Chair, on that table, you realize that $85 million was the total accessed from the Bank of Uganda Foreign Reserves, from the National Reserves. And the breakdown we had in the first report of the Auditor General, that includes the 12 billion, are amounts that were requested for by the statutory manager and approved by various hierarchy in Bank of Uganda. And my attention, Madam Chair, goes to, in particular, the money in foreign currency that was drawn from the national reserves, and particularly so, part of it, especially the $1.6 million as intervention costs. When we talk of approvals, requisition and approval, we must be mindful of the laws of this country.
Madam Chair, on the 15th of January of 2016, there was a directive from the Permanent Secretary and Secretary of the Treasury barring payment of foreign currency to local suppliers, with the exception of those who had hand-running contracts before the due date. I want to lay a copy, Madam Chair, through you for the benefit of our colleagues from the other side. I see that intervention cost of $1.6 million, paid part of it to local suppliers, including Max, in dollars, against the authority of the PSST in reference to Section 79 of the Public Finance and Management Act of 2015. So, Madam Chair, for me to appreciate...
I think the colleague would avail a copy to this side.
Deputy Governor, you can have a look at this. Since it has been said you did all the approvals. Go ahead.
So for me, these approvals, before we go to the amounts and what they were meant for, I'm still interested in the authority of approval, especially for those approvals that were in foreign currency. I thank you, Madam Chair.
What is your question?
My question is on that query. We need an explanation on these subsequent approvals.
EDS, the approval is required. And then I also want you to interest yourself in Section 15 of Bank of Uganda Act. That is in regard to General Reserve Fund. And as Honorable Mike has already said, this money was drawn from General Reserve. And when you look at Section 15.1, there shall be General Reserve Fund of the bank which shall be determined by the board from time to time. 2, the bank may, in consultation with the minister, transfer funds from General Reserve to the capital of the bank.
15.
Yes. So if you got permission from the minister, it would also require that letter, and getting permission from the minister would require this approval to come to Parliament. Yes, please.
Several questions have been raised, and let me start with the one raised by the Vice Chair. The General Reserve Fund.
Governor, I'm the Chair.
My apologies. The question raised by the Chair. My apologies. The General Reserve Fund is created by the board, and it is in case the bank makes a profit, the board can make a decision to transfer part of this profit to the General Reserve Fund. So if you are looking at the total capitalization of the Bank of Uganda, the General Reserve Fund is part of that capitalization. Now, let us...
Is it capitalization of Bank of Uganda or stabilizing the commercial bank?
No, this is part of the capital of the central bank.
Is it specified in the Act?
Yes, yes. It is the one that you read, Section 15.
Yes.
Yes. Now, later, the second issue, which is separate from this, is the foreign exchange reserves of the Bank of Uganda.
First, tell us where was the source of funding of 171 billion?
Now, I was coming to that because there are several.
First, start with that.
Okay. Let me then go to the issue raised by Honorable Sime. In the expenditures by the Crane Bank, there were local currency related capital liquidity injection, and two, there were payments for TTs and LCs. TTs and LCs. And the table you referred to clearly specifies the amounts for the LCs as 9.95 and two, the amounts for TTs. Okay? It's on page Roman 7.
Yes.
Roman 7.
Yes.
At the top, there is real-time gross settlement.
Yes.
Of 87. Okay?
Right.
And you have telegraphic transfers of 53.16 and letters of credit. At a later stage, in the same Auditor General.
Deputy Governor, before you reach there,
okay,
read for me source of funding, then you go and make a breakdown. Yes, then you'll give us the breakdown.
Sorry, I'm coming. Sources of funding. The account that needed to be funded.
Can I read for you if you have not been able to read it? Bank of Uganda injected into CBL a sum of 478.8 billion for liquidity support and intervention costs. I inquired into the source of funding and noted the sum of 171.81 billion sourced from Bank of Uganda currency in circulation.
That's correct.
That's what the question was. In the circulation account, while 85.24 was sourced from Bank of Uganda foreign reserves. That's now where that letter comes in. Bank of Uganda foreign currency reserves, Citibank account in New York, United States in respect of liquidity support, and other interventions indicated in the table below. That is now where you have gone the table. The issue first, where did you get the 171? Who approved it? Who gave you permission as Bank of Uganda to spend the 171.81 billion without parliamentary approval?
Okay, let me then go back to the sources of funding. We have...
Just before you do that, I want to remind you that we had a lengthy debate in Parliament where BoU had asked for recapitalization of 600 billion shillings.
Yes.
And the whole Parliament took over 2 hours to decide whether to appropriate money to BoU or not. A decision was taken. So this is just to give you a background that it is still this Parliament that has powers to give you money to spend. So you can answer that question from the background that who gave you the authorization to withdraw the monies the Honorable Vice Chair had asked. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just go back? The table is clear that we have foreign exchange related resources and sharing related resources. Following a request by the statutory manager, we would fund the shilling account of Crane in Bank of Uganda. Okay? Bank of Uganda is the one unique institution where we can create a liability matched by an asset. Okay? So the money, the shilling denominated expenditures would be reflected in the currency issued, which is a liability on the balance sheet of Bank of Uganda. There is a question which has been raised.
Deputy Governor.
Before the question?
My question actually was, with the exception of the telegraphic transfers, the real-time gross settlements, that second last item of intervention costs that cost us 1.62 billion and 7 billion, coming to a total of 12.24. Some part of this money was paid to local suppliers and local contractors, and in dollars. I could share with you an invoice here from Max that was paid on the 15th of December 2016. It was $66,000 US, and later the balance was paid in March of $75,000. And my issue was that we are accessing money from our foreign reserves in dollars to pay local contractors in foreign currency when there is a bar by the Ministry of Finance to execute payments against these agreements in foreign currency.
Yeah. I think this is a very specific issue relating to that pro forma invoice. I don't think I even approved it. I don't think I'm the one who approved it, but let the officers explain the contract and the approval process for that amount.
I think you tell us about the approvals that were said you made them.
No, I think there are two issues. There is one question as to why we funded using our foreign exchange reserves for the TTs and LCs, that's one. But I think Honorable Tusime is more interested in the 1.62, okay, which is to a local supplier. So I will come back to explain the source of financing for the TTs and LCs. Okay.
And why Honorable Tusime is interested in that is in regard to this letter which was written to all accounting officers. And you being the accounting officer, you should be knowing that they said the fact that we make our budgets in local currency, why would you pay a local supplier in foreign currency?
Honorable Chair, the letter that has been circulated is to accounting officers for central and local government, which does not include Bank of Uganda. So this copy of the letter was never sent to Bank of Uganda.
Honorable, are you done? Honorable?
Yes.
Governor, are your budgets made in foreign currency?
The budget of the Bank of Uganda is in shillings.
Okay. You can answer now, Nanis.
No. Madam Chair, procedure. Sometimes we get lost on the way. If we could proceed by, if an issue is raised, let it be concluded, then we take another issue. We get lost and get confused. Now I don't even know where we are.
We actually
Can we have the questions finished?
Chair.
You still have unfinished questions.
Chair.
You still have, let him finish, let the Deputy Governor finish the questions, then you come in.
No, I had referred the specific question raised by Tusime to maybe EDS, the former EDS or legal counsel, because it is a specific question. It is the one to do with the payment of the 1.62. Okay, that's the 1.62.
So you've asked former EDS to answer? Can we have the question answered?
You see, I think the Deputy Governor referred to 2 people and none of them wants to volunteer. Would you make a specific reference?
To the specific question, I'm requesting the former EDS to answer.
Former EDS, do you want to look at the invoice?
No, thank you, Chair. The procedure in the bank is that I don't make payments. That payment came to my office, I forwarded it for approval. From approval, it went to Chief Accountant. I think it is Chief Accountant who's supposed to answer. I don't make payments in the bank. Thank you.
Who originated it?
Thank you, Chair. It was received in EDS's office, and I forwarded it for approval. I forwarded it to Governor.
Now, that brings 2 questions, and the first is the one you have not answered. Where did it come from? And now the second is who you forwarded it to.
Thank you, Chair. It came from Max Advocates to the office of EDS. I forwarded it with a memo to Governor's office as an approving authority and an accounting officer of the bank. The Governor approved it, and it went to Chief Accountant, who approved. So I don't approve payments.
What was the role of the legal department in this?
Thank you, Chair. I thought that issue was discussed thoroughly some time back. We are on record.
We are looking at our accountability. Much as we discussed that, but now we are looking at the accountability of the 478.
You will still have to answer this question, Mrs. Bajenda. What was the role of the legal department in this?
Thank you, Chair. We discussed this issue, if I may repeat. All resolution matters, bank resolution, were vested in the docket of EDS. We also discussed an issue that procurement of external lawyers was done by procurement department. We also agreed here, we discussed here, sorry, Chair, that after a service provider has been procured, there is a list which a line of department, in this case supervision, could pick from. We also discussed here that allocating service providers did not have a procedure as long as the service provider was on the pre-qualified list, and in this case Max was the first winner. He won the legal services. I thought we discussed those issues. Now on payment, may I please request that you ask Chief Accountant. Thank you.
Just a little one on some clarification on what Yatembaje does. First of all, I want to believe in you. You can't be the one to effect payments. But you never acted like a postmaster. You are not just laying letters coming from wherever. By you forwarding this, what did you mean? Because you are not a postmaster. You are not a receptionist who just receive and forward. when you got the letter from Max, for example, and you forwarded it to the recipient, what were you saying?
Thank you, Chair. My memo, which was tabled here, was very clear, Chair, if I recall correctly. I was requesting for approval. I attached the invoice from Max and requested for approval. Thank you.
Justified the payment, but you could not effect it.
Honorable Kasvante, I think that is sufficient enough. Can we have Honorable Biandala?
Madam Chairperson, I was even yesterday wondering why Bank of Uganda keeps paying in dollars. Are you doing this because you anticipate economic dislocation or what? Madam, I hope they had a question. Do you prefer paying in dollars even where it's not necessary because you anticipate economic dislocation? Because in the case of these lawyers, surely, where would the economic dislocation come into their service?
Can you answer Honorable's question?
It's not just a preference that we like paying in dollars. Foreign exchange denominated expenditures are paid in foreign currency. Local currency denominated expenditures are paid in foreign exchange denominated are paid in foreign currency, local currency denominated are paid in local currency. And can I just request the Chief Accountant to add to that particular issue?
Deputy Governor, we had an interaction with the Max advocates yesterday. And according to them, according to the schedule that they were charging per partner, associate, and whatever, it was in Uganda shillings. And the question members are asking, why would you pay in foreign currency and yet their rates that they are giving you is in Uganda shillings?
And there are no factors in their service which would bring in the economic dislocation.
Can I request that the Chief Accountant...
But you see this, as we said earlier on, this is not court.
No.
If we realize that this has been an anomaly, and we have communication from PSST in regard to this, that we should always pay in Uganda shillings. That's why they even said all rent must be paid in Uganda shillings. So if we realize this is an anomaly, then you say, we will change this. Yes, Honorable Michael.
Madam Chair, maybe for us to be able to continue, we may request them to give us maybe a response to that, maybe so that we are able to continue in the interest of time and the timelines that we have.
Yeah, that's okay.
Madam Chair, do we need to have a response in writing to answer the why? It is clear they know why they did it. Why you approved in dollars? Really, do you need a day or even do you need to think about it?
Honorable, it is taking a little bit of time.
Let them answer. They don't have to take any more time. Let them give us an answer now.
We've noted it.
Let them say they don't have an answer to it.
No, why we are doing this first, apart from saving time, is they also need to look at their documents, if any, and give us an answer. To me, it's better to give us an answer they are sure of than speculating.
I remember even our rules do not allow us to act in speculation, so let's have a written. Yes, Governor.
The Chairperson, the Deputy Governor asked to be allowed to ask the Chief Accountant help.
Okay.
Madam Chair, through the Governor, I'm called Yusuf Muchivi. I'm the Acting Chief Accountant at the Bank of Uganda. To explain the $1.62 million, half of that money was paid as commission to the lawyers who recovered the money from one of the shareholders. So it didn't come from reserves. So, yes.
Okay.
And then, when it comes to paying foreign suppliers, we actually receive written approvals from the Office of the Governor, and we act on that. On the issue of national reserves versus other reserves, the central bank's balance sheet has what we call local reserves. The local reserves have what we call a general reserve, and these are denominated in Uganda shillings. And for clarity, they are not part of the national reserves of the country. The country has national reserves that are denominated in different currencies, actually hard currencies. These are dollars, pounds, and they are invested, and included in there are cash accounts. So we need to be clear on this. The other reserves, which is the general reserve, is not part of the national reserves, the national foreign reserves. And also, the Bank of Uganda Act specifically differentiates between national reserves, national foreign reserves, and the other reserves of the bank. Hope that is clear to the members.
So can you explain why you pay dollars to the lawyers?
I think the issue is, as the Office of the Chief Accountant, we only act on approved instructions. Yes.
No, but the management is saying it is you who can explain. Now you are sending us back. Where shall we go? Chair. Because there is no way the services of the lawyers could have an economic dislocation factor. Chair.
Was that collection in dollars? Was the collection in dollars?
The percentage one is in dollars.
Collection, was it in dollars?
Chair.
Members, yes, Honorable Kasvante.
Seeking just some clarification from the...
I think we should close the issue of the payment in dollars,
you see, when
because my presumption is if what was collected was in dollars, so the percentage should also be in dollars.
Yes, and that's why I wanted to ask, because it said part of it was commission, meaning there was some other part. So we need to get the percentage of that, and then what is the other part of it, because we are trying to understand what source. So part of it was commission for the collection of monies from the shareholder, but there is some other part. We need a breakdown of this.
No. I think, colleagues, let's remind ourselves of the proceedings of yesterday, because that's where that issue arose. The first batch was the percentage from what was collected, and that was in dollars. Now, the second, which the chair has been talking about, is where we are talking about the hourly rates, consultational rates, which was in shillings. I think let's draw this distinction. The question of how much ETC was thoroughly discussed yesterday, and that would not take us forward, this being an exit meeting.
And I would request that we go to the detailed report. The detailed report starts from 2.1. That was a summary of the report.
Chair.
And where you're going to get all those issues. When you finish, then we go to the detailed report on 2.1.
Clarification.
Yes, Moses.
I wanted to know these commissions from the shareholders, the recoveries from the shareholders, were they in dollars or in shillings?
Ask.
Accountant, was that money that was recovered from the shareholders in dollars?
Yes, I can confirm. The money was in dollars and they were paid 5% of what they recovered in dollars.
How much was it?
I have to go back and look at the reports.
Madam Chair, I think the issue in contention is not the amounts recovered from the shareholders that was in dollars, because they had to receive that money, take off their commission, and remit the rest to Bank of Uganda. That is well explained. Mine was in relation to locally generated invoices that were in dollars by local suppliers. Let's not be derailed. And to that extent, Madam Chair, maybe it would be fair for Bank of Uganda at a later stage, it may not be now, to give us that response in writing, indicating how much and to whom, the details that we may not have, to satisfy our curiosity on this particular issue.
And Madam, I would request the Bank of Uganda, I think they should be leading in this country to give confidence to the Ugandans of their currency. As Mike says, you pay a local supplier here in dollars, you have no confidence in your currency, you see?
Can we move on? We are going to get a response in writing in regard to that. By close of tomorrow.
Madam Chair, if I may, we had looked at 1.9.1, which was on page 3, and the issue was the Auditor General's issue was the deficiency in the Bank of Uganda Financial Crisis Management Plan.
Can we look at the detailed findings of the special audit, which is 2.1? You're looking at the summary.
Okay. Madam Chair, 2.1 is the preparation. This is page 6. This is preparation of the financial statement.
Page 6, members.
The first concern on page 6 is in the third paragraph under 2.1. That the audited Crane Bank annual report and financial statements for the period 1st January 2016 to 25th January 2017, when the bank was sold, were not submitted by Bank of Uganda, were not submitted to Bank of Uganda by KPMG. Hence, the Auditor General was unable to rely on these accounts to confirm the receipt and expenditure of the liquidity support and other intervention costs amounting for 78 billion injected into Crane Bank between 20th October 2016 and 25th January 2017. The Bank of Uganda, we explained at that time when we met with the Auditor General that the KPMG was yet to submit the audited Crane Bank annual report and the financial statements for that period in question. Madam Chair, I would like to inform you and the committee that KPMG has since that meeting submitted a draft audited accounts, and the final meeting with them has been arranged for tomorrow, Thursday 14th, 2019, to address some of the issues Bank of Uganda has raised with regards to the draft audited accounts prior to the governor signing off on them after those issues are addressed.
You said when was the report submitted?
I believe just hold on. We got a copy of the draft audited accounts last week on Friday. Madam Chair, draft.
And remember, it is on the basis of this report that the statutory manager was supposed to make his report.
Yes, well, the generation of these reports of financials that were audited by KPMG was based on accounts put together by the statutory manager.
So you're getting the report after you have sold the bank?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. Honorable Tusime,
when
Segola?
was KPMG supposed to submit its report?
Madam Chair, I do not recall when KPMG was engaged to do the audit of the financials for Crane Bank, but the cutoff date for the financials is 31st December 2016. So I believe the contracting KPMG to do so must have been done either shortly before or after.
And
Who
that
can
was
recall that? Who can recall when?
Yes,
contracted?
I believe that that engagement must have been, terms of engagement or contracting must have been done by Mrs. Bajenda. Perhaps she can help us and the statutory manager. But it was not done by the statutory manager. It was actually done by Bank of Uganda. So perhaps Mrs. Bajenda will help explain on this.
Mrs. Bajenda, can you help us on that?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I think EDS should go and check the records. If you cannot remember, we can call upon Ben Sekavira. But the records are there in your office when we hired them. Thank you.
Ben Sekavira, you are around, move in front. Honorable Anywa. Then Honorable Michael.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I just want to get clarification from the management, because they have just on record submitted that before they received the report, they closed the bank. On what basis, in the absence of the report, did they use to justify the closure? Because I thought that was one of the indicators in the report that would give you sufficient ground to close the bank.
Maybe you need to recall that the bank was never closed.
It is not yet closed. Honorable Michael.
Madam Chair.
It was sold.
Madam Chair, it is the sale. Because it closed from the original owners, it is now in the hands of another one.
Honorable Michael.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Sakavira, I hope you're getting what the members are asking.
Thank you, Chair, and through Governor. At a previous meeting, we presented documents to indicate that the statutory manager did engage KPMG. At that same meeting, we also on table was laid a letter that I personally signed recruiting KPMG to do this audit, which has been completed. And this letter is already with the COSASE, dated around November, December of 2016. So this matter was presented on this table, and the record is already with the committee. That's what I remember.
But Honorable Anywa is asking, what was the basis of you selling off the bank? Did you say close or sell? Selling off the bank when you had not even gotten the audit report from the people you contracted to do the audit. What was the basis?
I thought we had an inventory report done by KPF, now PwC. This report had already come out, and it revealed so many things.
I also remember they had a valuation report from DFCU, which they based on. Honorable Tusime.
No, Madam Chairperson, just one thing. Mr. Sekavira says he recruited KPM 2016, you say?
Mr. Sekavira,
audit reports annual.
Mr. Sekavira, that chair is meant for you.
It is what?
audit reports annual?
Can you sit there?
Because I would have expected a 2017, a 2018 if they are annual. So what happened?
Chair, the bank was not in operation by end of 2017. It had already been transferred, assets had been transferred to DFCU. That's what I remember. The transfer happened in January of 2017.
Ma'am, just note that the KPMG report is yet to be discussed. They are going to have an exit meeting. That is what should be on record. Can we have Honorable Michael?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In effect, of course, there are two reports. One by PricewaterhouseCoopers that was intended to generate an inventory to assist in purposes of liquidation. The second one, where I want Mr. Sekabira to give me a clue. This was initiated for purposes of acquiring the financial statements of Crane Bank Limited from January 2016 to the day when the P&A was signed on the 25th of January of 2017. Now, with due respect, time has gone by, and I want to know, first of all, the relevance of the report for a bank that was already sold. And two, the timelines of an audit under the Audit Act in relation to financials.
And then, are you going to pay for that report since this time bad? For the professional fees, are you going to pay for it?
Chair, I don't think I'm competent to answer all the questions, but I'll try to answer some. As I said already, the audit for the year 2016, December, was ordered or engaged in the year 2016. Unfortunately, the draft report is coming out now. But the audit was meant, because Crane Bank was a company supposed to be audited at the end of the year, so it had to produce annual accounts. And that was the basis. The audit fee was paid.
Did you have the time frame for them to present the report? And the circumstance that there was a breach, don't you think you needed to get back that money?
Certainly, there's a timeline for existing banks within which to submit reports, I think by end of March of the subsequent year. But at that time, this bank was not in operation then. That's the timeline I know, but also the Companies Act prescribes timeline. But I may not be competent to talk about what can happen in law if that timeline was made under the Companies Act. I don't have that competence. I know that the audit fee the deposit was paid by Crane Bank before it was taken over, and the subsequent balance, I think, was paid by DFCU Bank. I made my recollection, based on my recollection, the audit fees have been settled already.
I'm sure, Mr. Sekabira, you are competent to answer the question as to whether there was a breach in terms of the timelines.
And also the relevance of the report, because for the whole of 2016, part of that year, the bank was under statutory management. So I'm wondering who is going to sign on behalf of the directors. Will be partially signed before statutory management by Crane Bank in existence, and then the other bit of it. So the relevance of the report, Madam Chair, for me is a very big issue.
Yes, and I think he has not answered the question of relevance of that report when it comes out.
And I think because we've realized there is no relevance of the report, let's go to the next query. 2.2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the Governor again. 2.2 on the liquidity assessment. We're still on page 6. The remaining other page, on page 6, the first part is largely explanatory. On page 7, there was a computation done by the Office of the Auditor General to demonstrate the extent of non-compliance with the Bank of Uganda minimum threshold of 20% under Regulation 7 and 2 of the Financial Institutions Liquidity Regulations. Madam Chair, if you will note, based on the computation as at 20th October, the ratio of liquid assets against total deposits that was actually held by Crane Bank on takeover by Bank of Uganda was 3.9% vis-a-vis the legally mandated and required minimum of 20%. What I would like to draw, Madam Chair, your attention to is that when we turn to page 8, still under 2.2, in the last paragraph, the Auditor General concurs with Bank of Uganda and states that therefore, based on the analysis, the liquidity position of Crane Bank during the statement management period necessitated the injection of liquidity support by Bank of Uganda. Should I proceed, Madam Chair?
Members, we are on 2.2 on liquidity support. Yes.
Madam Chair, I wanted to understand something about the inventory report. As far as I remember, it took Bank of Uganda about 8 days before it could contract with somebody to compile this report. Now, what happened is between that time, you've taken over, but the report is not complete. There is, some days before some company is contracted to compile the inventory. Who is in charge of the assets? And what happened is if that one in charge went with some monies and one begins from another point, how can you trust that is really trustable? To have the bank for some days before an inventory report is compiled. Why don't you do it at the very day when you take over and then you instruct PwC or whichever to begin compiling the inventory?
And this question is related to the previous one, where the report is now regarded irrelevant. One, there were no audited accounts for you to rely and say the depots were at 1.078, which reduced to 684. There is no justification for that. Audit, can we hear from you on that? Because if there are no audited books of accounts, and now you're saying that it reduced from 1.078 to 684. What justification do you give? Because these figures are picked from your figures. Audit?
Thank you, Chair. Since the report is, we cannot rely on it. It's a draft. However, the compliance reports submitted by BoU is what we relied on to give this position.
That they are relying on compliance reports from BoU to give this position. So for us to prove, we must have a justification that these were the right reports audited, for us to take this as what the EDS said, that the audit was in agreement with BoU. Yes?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, once more I remind myself, this is an accountability committee. In light that our money was paid out on an irrelevant report according to the management, wouldn't it be procedure right now that we put them to task to refund the money, to have the money refunded? Because what was the purpose of paying them when the report was no longer necessary? Can they account for the money which was paid?
Maybe we also need to look at their terms of engagement for that audit firm.
Can I come in? I think there is an issue that's coming up that the report is irrelevant. This report is not irrelevant. Okay?
We are referring to it as irrelevant because the decision was made without considering the report. And that's why we're asking what was the basis if it came after the decision was made.
Maybe we can hear from Deputy Governor why he thinks it is relevant.
Honorable Chair, I think the honorable member has referred to this committee as an accountability committee. We may have taken action. The only way you can ascertain that we took the correct action is by looking at an audit report. That is the one that is going to provide us with assurances on the accounts. So we need this audited report. So that's number one. There is the issue of timing that you have referred to. You have referred to the end of year, end December 2016. The bank was handed over on January 25th. The board of Bank of Uganda has already made a decision that KPMG should be requested to make post-audit adjustments up to January 25th. So they are going to prepare a report as of December 31st, 2016. They will also prepare a report showing those adjustments as of January 25th, 2017. So that the report remains relevant.
Retrospectively, I am not sure whether it is relevant to what we are doing. You need it for record purpose, but not relevant to what we are doing. Yes, Honorable Tusibe.
Maybe we should benefit from the Deputy Governor. What seems to have caused a delay of almost 2 years for the auditors to even come up with a simple draft?
Madam Chair, even for further clarification, could the governor, deputy governor, let us know when was this firm paid? Was it after they have delivered the report, and how much?
On the issue of the delay, there were internal issues as to who would sign the report. Okay. Should it be the statutory manager or the governor? And I think this is an issue that we touched on during the COSASE hearings. And the board has now pronounced itself on this particular issue that the governor will sign the report because the statutory manager was terminated, his contract was terminated. So that's why there was that delay.
When you look at this query and where the auditors are saying, they are saying this is a draft report and they relied on the figures from Bank of Uganda and they look at a ratio of 3.9. We as a committee, before we have a documentary evidence, we cannot rely on this. We can't take this as a gospel truth because we don't know where the figures were got from and we cannot justify those figures. So we need the figures that can be justifiable for us to be able to make an opinion on this. Can we go to the next?
No, you take it that the committee has asked you to submit the report.
Next query, requisition, approval and disbursement. That is 2.3.
2.3 on page 8.
But my question has not been answered. When I checked the reports, Bank of Uganda engaged PwC to compile an inventory of assets on 28th of October 2016. That is 8 days after Bank of Uganda had acquired the same CBN. So my question was, who accounts for the first 8 days before PwC could come and compile an inventory?
And that is a different one. It is also a query on its own. You will get it ahead.
They put,
okay.
Take a note, it is very serious and fundamental.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why.
Yes.
That's why it is a query on its own. 2.3.
Madam Chair, 2.3 on page 8, I'd like to draw your attention to the second paragraph on that page, that although the plan, this is reference to the Financial Crisis Management Plan that was developed in 2015 of Bank of Uganda, provides for the injection of liquidity support in times of crisis, it does not provide for the process of injection of liquidity support to financial institutions during the statutory management period. As indicated earlier, which was the same item which was raised in 1.91 in the executive summary, Bank of Uganda, going forward, has noted this deficiency in the existing financial crisis management plan, and will going forward include detailed standard operating procedures in the financial crisis management plan that deal with the process for the disbursement of liquidity support funds. So, Madam Chair, just for your benefit, is that this query talks about a deficiency within the financial crisis management plan by Bank of Uganda. Bank of Uganda acknowledges this and states that going forward, standard operating procedures are going to be put in place to ensure that the process of disbursement of liquidity support is catered for going in the future.
What are those standard procedures that you're going to put in place that you think would be the correct ones?
For example, there will be issues on, and it was something which was mentioned in the main COSASE hearing, whether, for example, we should include a specific provision of budget in our budgeting process, or have a standing agreement with the Minister of Finances with a standby facility, or when it comes to the process, is there a maximum, will there be a maximum for liquidity support, who approves what and when? Because those are deficiencies in the existing financial management crisis plan that we have today.
Yes, Honorable Namayanja.
I would like to find out, have you addressed this, or you are going to address it?
Madam Chair, we are going to address it.
It is
Madam Chair,
plan.
a gap has been identified.
And they have accepted. Can we go on next?
I thought they would be showing us that they are processing to address this, but they are going to do that anyway.
Honorable Namayanja, this plan, this report came out on Friday, and we discussed the thing when the minister was here. And so that is now a way forward, but the query still stands. We will have it in our report.